Hey, all right, we're back. Jack of all trades. I'm here with Jack Newman. We're going to get into some NFL analysis. Obviously, the season is a little more, things shaping up. See some directions the teams are starting to go into. We also understand that not all 4-1 teams are created equal. And Jack, we're going to get into some. The bottom line is this year, you just want to get into the playoffs. If you get into the playoffs, you have a chance, right? So, what are we looking at as far as a 1-4 team versus a 4-1 team? What's the likelihood of getting into the tournament, if you will?
All right, so I mean, sorry. Do I gotta start sharing my screen here, buddy. Uh,
Sure.
are we up? Sorry. Here we go.
Yep. Yep. Here
Okay.
we go.
So I was listening to, or it was actually on Twitter, and it was a guy, Matt Coller, who, whatever. I mean, here's what you got. You got people are going to be optimistic or pessimistic. Okay, so if you listen if you're a Vikings fan, I'm going to talk about NFC North stuff here today, and we're going to go over some probabilities and stuff. It'll be educational. So, but anyway, you can listen to. So K fan carries the Vikings games. All right. So Paul Allen's the announcer. Paul Allen has a show. Paul Allen gets incredible ratings. Okay, so everybody else who's trying to cover the Vikings is trying to, get an audience away from Paul Allen. So what a guy like Matt Coller, who just got fired from 1500 at the beginning of the year, blamed it on COVID, whatever. But the bottom line is they're getting killed in the ratings because people don't want to listen to him. They want to listen to Paul Allen. So what a guy like Matt Coller does is he identifies that people who don't want to hear Paul Allen's optimistic views. So cynics and negative people and pessimists are going to be more inclined to listen to a guy like Matt Coller if he's negative about it. And so Matt Coller writes an article this week about who the Vikings should trade ahead of the deadlines, as if like that's a thing in the NFL. It generally isn't. Okay, like you got to be like completely out of it, and so that's where he's trying to lean that way. And he knows if he starts talking about the Vikings, oh, they stink and they're out of it and they're 1-4 and this season's over. He's gonna get the people who don't love Paul Allen, and that's the only chance he has. It's the only chance he's ever had is to spin negative under the guise of realism. And the reason I say it's negative is because somebody said, well, Zimmer's going to be too stubborn to trade away those guys because he wrote an article to trade away Riley Reef and Harris and Kyle Rudolph, whatever. Like, there's no way the Vikings are going to give up. Okay. And so his point was, and I would have even listened to him a little bit if he said, well, if they lose to Atlanta, they're in big trouble, whatever. But he writes the article as if, and he said, quote, it's on Twitter, look it up, that, well, if the Vikings lose, or if the Vikings win against Atlanta and they go to 2-4, they only have a 10% chance of making the playoffs. And so here's the playoff probabilities. And my only guess is he was going off the old 6-team playoffs instead of 7, and he was going off of a 2-4 record in a 16 playoff situation. But one win, 4 losses right now is where the Vikings are. That's 13%. And according to this, 2 wins, 4 losses only gets you to 14%. That is just like you don't know anything about the team. So that's including teams like the Jets and teams that are like tank type teams also. Because, like you said at the top of the show, not all 1-4s are created equal. Not all 4-1s are created equal. And so that's my point. My main point is like that. Well, my main point is he was being ridiculous and ridiculously negative. Because if I go to the Vikings on 538, at 1-4, they're listed to be as a slightly above average team. And the reason that is because they've played the hardest schedule in the entire league so far this year. By a number of metrics. So this has playoff chances. 538. They simulate it like 100,000 times. It's down here. 100,000 simulations based on updates, a traditional ELO model, value on head-to-head results, quality of opponent. Anyway, So 27%. Okay, that's at 1-4, and I can tell you that this week they've got the Vikings as a 6-point, favorite, 70% chance of winning. So there's a 30% chance that they'll lose this week, and if they did, that would greatly lower that 27%, likely. But if they win, it's gonna raise that number. And so here's Coller saying they're going to be 10% if they win. Okay. Well, it's going to be more like 30. And according to this, they'd only be 14. But this, like I said, this is totally, doesn't know which team. This is like a random, an average 2-4 team, a typical 2-4 team. And as you can see, like, okay, let's look at some of the other 1-4 teams. Chargers, 8%. Texans, 8%. Washington, 9%. Jaguars, 2%. So, I mean, this are extraordinarily better off than all the other 1-4 teams. So, common sense would tell you that this is more detailed, more specific, more accurate than just using a generic, oh yeah, in the history of football, here's how it's been to finish in the top 7. And we can look at the other side too, right? So 4-1 teams.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, you see 85%, and I know that's what you talked about too at the top of the show. So 4-1 teams are 85%. So let's go to the tape here. Chiefs 4-1, 96. Bears are the worst 4-1 team at 67. I mean, that's a 29% difference. The Bears are what, 85 is what they should be. So they're 18% worse than a typical 4-1 team, where the Chiefs are 11% better. The Chiefs are actually 1% better than the 4-0 Packers. They're 1% better than the 5-0 Seahawks. They're 3% better than it's like if the Rams are 4-1, they're 83, kind of close in line. And a team like the Bills is 72. That's 13% worse than your average. So, I mean, yeah, if you throw all the teams with the same record in the same basket, and what's irritating about that is, like, if to me it's just so obvious, like, what a guy like Matt Coller is trying to do. It's like if somebody came up to me as a Vikings fan and they wanted to know, like, hey, who should I follow? Who should I listen to? And then if that same fan was saying to me, like, oh, those bums always lose and they're overpaid and you should fire this coach and get in a new coach, and I'd be like, yeah, you should probably listen to Matt Coller, because he is out there stumping for the negative pessimist fan. And I love these guys get very virtuous and say, like, oh, Paul Allen, it's just, all roses and drinking the purple Kool-Aid and optimism. It's true. Paul Allen will be optimistic. He won't bash the team very often. A lot of times he'll bash them right away after a really bad game, and then he'll swing it back into, like, let's look at the bright side of this, the bright side of that. And I'm like, this is football. This is a recreational. You should be trying to enjoy it. Like, if you seriously just sit there and watch the Vikings and anticipate bad things and project out bad things and decide that if the only way you're going to do is win the Super Bowl, it's the only reason it's going to be successful, then I don't know why you bother. Then I just wouldn't. If I was going to be negative about it all the time, I just wouldn't necessarily follow a team, and I just watch football. But if you look at the bright side, and everything in the future is kind of a fantasy, it's like, well, there are future realities where the Vikings are better than we think they are now, and there's future realities where either one of them is just fantasy land. So why would I choose to go? I mean, I don't know. It's so bizarre that people want to go negative. And here's things I like to point out. We might have pointed out before, but Viking fans' worst case is usually the Packers winning the Super Bowl. Well, that's 14%. You see that right there? Win the Super Bowl. And a lot of Viking fans are just like, oh, Vikings have no chance to make the playoffs. Season's over. Well, they have 27% chance to make the playoffs today. So they're almost twice as likely to make the playoffs than the Packers are to win the Super Bowl. So why would a Vikings fan sit there and live in this reality of, oh, our season's over, we can't make the playoffs, and the Packers are probably going to win it all? I mean, that is super pessimistic. It's super pessimistic. And one thing we've shown with like models and like, here you go, before the season started, uh, Vikings had a 59% chance, but they only had a 5% chance to win the Super Bowl. Okay. And the Packers had a 5% chance to win the Super Bowl. Well, now look where the Packers are. In just 5 weeks, they've gone from 5 to 14. And the Vikings gone from 5 to, what is it, 1 now? It's either 1 or, yeah, it's less than 1, right? So, but it's like if you string some wins together, and the Vikings are able to get to where the Bears are, it's 3%. And if the Packers strung some losses together, that could go down to like 7%. Like everything changes week to week. So either, I don't know, it seems crazy to be sitting here talking about trading players even if they beat Atlanta. Like why wouldn't you, like, you beat Atlanta, you got a bye week to get ready for the Packers. If you win that game, it totally changes the outlook of the season. These numbers are going to rise like crazy if that happens. So, again, it's like, I'm not saying be optimistic and then go bet a bunch of money on the Vikings win the Super Bowl every year. Like, be realistic. And here's how you're realistic. At the beginning of the season, if you're 20-1 to win the Super Bowl, don't hinge your happiness as a fan, a fanatic, don't hinge that on winning the Super Bowl. That's ridiculous. Like before the season, the Chiefs were at 14%, to win the Super Bowl. Well, that's not very good. That's not a very good chance of winning the Super Bowl, 14%. And they're still at like 15%. So it's like, still not very good, not very likely. 85 is a lot more than 15.
Yeah, if you're gonna go off of just a Super Bowl win, good luck with that. There's at best an 85% chance that you're gonna be super disappointed, and that's year in and year out. For me, we like to keep it positive, optimistic. I'll take some of that purple Kool-Aid, especially in 2020. We see the Vikings schedule does turn a little bit more favorable. They're switching heads on defense, different numbers back there. They're growing, they're getting better. If nothing else that comes out of 2020, if it's a building block for 2021, we'll take it. Other than that, we're going to stay tuned. Tune into the games this week, some good games. Play responsibly if that's your thing. And thanks for tuning in. And be sure to tune in next time on Jack of All Trades.